Okay, let's get started. People can just chime in. I'm recording. The first thing I'd like to do, and Katie and Kate, I'm going to hold you until the end because the end of the introductions, because I'm going to segue right into having you guys talk. But I thought that it would be good for people to introduce themselves, and I know what we've all done Zoom. What I see isn't what you see. So I'm just going to say your name, and if you could just introduce yourself, say where you work, and sort of what your role is. And I'm going to start with on my left top of my screen, which is Michael Nutter.
Hi, my name's Mike Nutter. I work at Do4 Tax, and I've been here for about 1.5 years, and I'm a staff accountant.
Thank you, Michael, and welcome. And Lacey?
Hi, my name is Lacey McMorrin. I'm also at Do4 Tax. Currently, I came over July last summer, and I'm a CPA, but I've been practicing for several years now.
Thank you, Lacey. Bethany?
Hi, I'm Bethany. I work at Barry Dunn. I am a recruiter, and I have been there for almost 5 years.
Thanks, Bethany. Gary?
Grant?
I'm sorry, Grant.
That's fine, that's fine. I'm Grant Valentine. I also work at Barry Dunn. I've been here close to 15 years now. I'm a senior manager on the audit side. I work closely with Bethany on the internship and our newer hires, and we're really starting a new initiative to streamline the internship process across our entire firm, audit, tax, consulting, so on and so forth. So heading up that charge and looking forward to the discussion today.
Great. Kate, I'm going to hold off on you. Katie, I'm holding off on you. Heather?
Good morning. I'm Heather Perot. I work for the state of Maine. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Finance for Administrative and Financial Services, which means I get to oversee a lot of finance people and a lot of HR people. And I am trying to get started an internship type program at the state level, especially near and dear to my heart. We can't find any finance people to hire, but of course, probably expanding it to other disciplines as well.
Thank you, Heather. Kathleen or Kate, I'm not sure if you're another Kate as well. Kittredge, if you could introduce yourself and say what you'd like to go by.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Kathleen. I go by Kathleen, so that works. I work at Whitfleet. I've been here just a few months, actually. I came over from a career services role at the University of North Dakota. I work out of our Minneapolis office, so the Maine area is kind of new to me, so I'm learning as we go.
Thanks, Kathleen. And Carla?
I'm Carla Brannon, and I'm owner of Brannon CPA Services, a newly formed tax firm, six months in, and looking to build an internship program within my firm, and kind of see where this group is going to take things.
Thank you. And absolutely fine to have Matt join us. I'm hoping, and literally I had 15 people who had responded. So even if they're not here, I had 2 people this morning say, I've got a client meeting. There is interest in this program. Again, it's just, and I have to say, when they changed the tax filing deadline to May 17th, there are a lot of people on vacation, and I did not want to remove or change this meeting. So again, as I said, I'm recording, and I will share with all the people who had RSVP'd that they wanted to be here. So thank you everyone for being here. Actually, in some respects, it's nice that it's a smaller group because perhaps we can actually have a conversation as opposed to groupthink. So now that we've got the firm representatives, I'm going to turn it over to Katie Shorey from Live and Work in Maine and let you introduce yourself and share a little bit about, I'm hoping everyone on the call is familiar with Live and Work in Maine, but maybe you can give a little bit of a background and your involvement in this as sort of the place to host the internship listing.
Definitely. Good morning, everyone. Katie Shorey with Live and Work in Maine. For those who don't know, we are a nonprofit that is essentially like a public-private partnership. So we work first and foremost with employers, the state of Maine, specifically the Department of Economic and Community Development, because under DECD is Office of Tourism and a bunch of other things, and we get a little bit of money from DECD to focus on talent attraction and retention. And we also work with our other nonprofit partners like Kate with Educate Maine, Boots to Roots. If you're familiar with Boots to Roots, they are specifically trying to attract transitioning military families, because at a certain time of year or exactly when you're transitioning out of the military. So we're working with that organization to let them know about career opportunities and quality of life opportunities in Maine. And we do a lot of marketing campaigns, PR, communication work. We are not a placement firm. We're not a recruiting firm. We are think of us more as like a communications and PR agency that's really trying to promote Maine as a great place to have a career and a good quality of life. So with my day-to-day, I work with our employers. I'm our point of contact with Kate for the internship experience. And that means a bunch of different things. Kate's running the day-to-day experience under Educate Maine, but we might be helping promote it, working with employers to let them know, like, oh, you can, if you already have an internship experience, you can opt people in. How do we get good speakers there? I don't want to take away any of Kate's talking points, but I always like to say, or give this example just to kind of paint the picture here. When I lived in DC, it was so easy for me as a I had internships there, all undergrad and whatnot. And I met a ton of people just through these internship experiences. So when I graduated college, it was very easy for me to be like, oh, I want to go back to DC because I know young people, I know there's all these different employers and whatnot. And what we've heard from some of our partners is that like they might have like 2 or 3 interns, and they want them to be able to meet other employers, other young people, because that helps with our retention, that helps with attraction, to know, oh, I don't need to go down to Boston. There's a whole professional network in my backyard. So we think through a lot of that and do a lot of the storytelling and social media about the program. So I'll stop there because we can go into more details, and then I'll pass it over to Kate.
Great, thank you, Katie. My name is Kate Howell. I'm the program director for Maine Career Catalyst. It's a program under the Educate Maine umbrella. Educate Maine, another nonprofit in the state that works on championing career readiness and educational attainment in the state. We work closely with Maine Spark in trying to get more Mainers with credentials of value, and work with folks from cradle to career. So whether it is early childhood to adult education, Educate Maine is involved. And my snippet of that is working with college students. So that's really where I am and where I work. We'll get into more details of the program. Katie started to share some good kind of pieces of how we work together. Similarly to what Katie said about working on talent attraction and retention in our state, that's really our goal. So we are supplemental to any programs that might be being run in your organizations already. Or if you're thinking about starting an internship program or hiring your first intern, we can help jumpstart that and accelerate it by being those extra bells and whistles of professional development, networking, and those types of things to help kind of accelerate your advancement of the program. We work closely with Live and Work in Maine because we're so aligned with what we're doing. Lots of times we kind of think of me working with the college students in the higher ed, and then kind of almost handing them off to Katie as they graduate. We're kind of like a linear, kind of like we're still working with them and trying to find ways to get them engaged in the state. Yeah, so we primarily work with partnering with employers. And that's why we wanted to meet with you today. We found that some of the best ways to reach students is engaging with them through the employers they already work with and building on that network. So I'm sure we will get into more of that personally / professionally. I come from the HR side. I built my career as a early career recruiter and worked a lot in internship development and university recruiting and relations. And my interns at my former employer were involved in this program, and I became very passionate about it. So when the job opened up early last year to take over to run the program statewide, it was a great next step for me. So definitely understand where some of you are coming from. I've worked with lots of hiring managers and done lots of recruiting. So as much as I can help and share and answer questions along the way as it relates to your current programs, I'm happy to do that.
Trish, can I add one thing? I forgot to mention the job board. So Live Work Maine has a job board. It's like 2% of what we do. We kind of just, it's self-serve. We sort of leave it over there. But it is, when we track the data, a lot of eyes are coming from out of state, or we just happen to have very good SEO. So when people are like, what's it like to live in Maine or work in Maine, that often pops up. And we have, so for example, we have a handful of employer partners. That's how we're funded. We have 12 employer partners. We're going up to potentially 15, but we're very specific about who we work with to focus on the strategy of the organization. But Maine Health is an example of an employer partner. And we pull their all of their job listings, and they have told us year after year, our job board is the highest conversion rate for them. So the number of people that find jobs on Live Work Maine, they apply on Maine Health's internal system. We're just featuring them. They don't apply like within our system. They apply on Maine Health's website, and then get the most applicants apply, get hired to Maine Health, higher than LinkedIn for them, higher than Indeed. So we're just like the best resource for that. And so we did form an internship section, and Kate and I worked on promoting that. We were like, any employer that has an internship, apprenticeship, co-op program, you can put that on there for free. We're just trying to build up the location where students can find internship postings in one place. Because we've heard that, Kate, right? Like time and time again, they want one place where they can know like, where are the main internships? And so that's why we are doing it via Live Work Maine.
I'm sure all of you have dealt with posting in multiple places on Handshake and Simplicity and LinkedIn, and students are looking everywhere. They're trying to look on direct sites for employers that they think they want to work with. You're trying to post in 30 different places. And so Live Work Maine has been a great resource for that as well, because we do a lot of work with students at the end of the summer to ensure that we get them signed up for Live Work in Maine if they haven't already, so that they're getting newsletters, they're more connected to the brand. And then we've seen it this summer, like with people then going to like, oh, I signed up last year. I'm going to go first look for my internships here because I know the employers that I heard from last summer in my program are all going to be hiring. They're all going to be on that site, right? So we know that we're trying to not only build the number of internships there, but build the number of young people that are using that site as well.
Thank you, Kate and Katie. And actually, that is the heart of our conversation. We did a survey a couple of years ago, and students said exactly that. The accounting, we did it in the business schools and the colleges and universities we work for now. The response, I will be honest, was not statistically significant, but to the person who did respond, they said, I want to go to one spot. And also, that happened to be this year, a couple vendors that had reached out to me said, hey, my son or my daughter is a student at St. Michael's College or UMass, and they want to work in Maine. Are there any internship listings? And I don't really have a place to send a college student who's not in a Maine university. So that is really the heart of this proposal. If we can get, and I think all of you firms, I mean, the elephant in the room, which I'm going to acknowledge, is because there are declining numbers of students majoring in accounting and declining numbers of students sitting for the CPA exam, et cetera, et cetera. The elephant in the room is that you're all pretty much competing for the same candidates. I'm acknowledging that. I'm not saying that it's not there. The goal of this is to expand the number of students that might want to try an accounting internship. You might get a finance major or someone who's marketing and minoring in accounting that tries an internship and we can convert them. So the goal is to expand the population. And if we can have a one-stop shop on the Live and Work site that is all accounting internships, I think that's the goal of this proposal. One challenge, I guess I'm going to stop there to see if any of the firm representatives have questions. I think you know where we're heading to, and I don't want to keep repeating. So do any of you have questions? There is one challenge, and that's in the accounting field is the tax intern schedule, which happens in the winter, which is a little off cycle than the summer. But I'd like to tackle that separately. So I'm going to stop now and ask any of you within the firms if you have any particular questions or observations. You guys are all happy with this. You're on board.
Trish, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in with a little bit of information before we get like deep into like how the programs work and that kind of thing, just to speak to what you just talked about. And we work with organizations and companies across the board. Currently, we have about 500 students who are going to participate this summer at over 50 employers across the state. And that is post-COVID numbers. In 2019, we had 800 students. So we're building back up. But as you know, there's lots of question marks out there, and not everyone's back to pre-COVID, right? But I think one of the big things, and Katie and I were talking about this as we prepped for the meeting, was that idea of competing versus the idea of coming together to show how big the network is. And the example that I wanted to give was last summer. So we work with a lot of the insurance companies in Maine, and whether it's Unum, Cross Insurance, smaller firms, MEMIC, they're often competing for talent. The same with biotech. We have tons of life science companies in the area, and they're regularly competing. My former employer was a life science and biotech company, and we traded scientists with a number of firms fairly regularly, right? It's just the nature of working in the industry. But last summer, one of the things that we did was put together an industry exploration panel on insurance. It's called Illuminating Insurance. We had 4 panelists from 4 different insurance agencies who all came on and talked about what their early career experience was like, what they liked about their firm, what they were looking for. And you really heard from people about, why they chose a specific company. I wanted to start somewhere bigger because of X, Y, and Z. I wanted to start somewhere smaller because of these opportunities, but I see myself going to someplace bigger when I want to expand. Whereas you heard from someone else that said, I'm at somewhere big, but now that I've done that and I'm more specialized, I kind of want to go somewhere smaller where I can see things, in a different picture. And it was one of the most well-attended events that we held last summer. We had almost 100 students at the event who were hearing about it because they were interested in understanding what early career looked like in that industry, and seeing that even some of the people on the panel had worked for other companies on the panel and were still speaking highly of them was really valuable to the students because they saw long-term career paths. I would imagine very few people in this room have worked for the same company since graduation. And when you think about that, yes, we're competing. No, we don't want people to leave. But we know that sometimes they're going to. And so if you know that, yes, some people might leave you to go to another company, it's also valuable to be in that same space where if someone's going to leave another company, they're already acknowledging that they know who you are. And being able to showcase the whole network is really what our program is all about, the network of all the opportunities that students could have. So they're not just seeing the one opportunity in front of them, they're seeing that Maine has a whole infrastructure for them to look at, and that they could build a career here, not just take their first job. So I think
Yeah.
if you can put that mindset in a little bit, it certainly has been working, and we've definitely structured our program to help support that in a lot of different industries.
Kate, that's so spot on. And we, like, when we're trying to work with employers or in the storytelling, like the number of conversations I have with people are like, oh yeah, well, if I move to Maine to work at WEX, like, or if I come to work at IDEX, like, is that the only vet tech company? And it's like, well, no, we have over 400 life science companies. And we also have like Rare Breed, Vet Sciences, Decra Pharmaceuticals. Like, we have this like smattering of those like very specific vet health. We don't just have WEX, we have 14 like other small fintech payment companies and some other bigger ones. So we need to really paint the picture of like exactly what Kate was saying, of all of the different types of employers here. So I get where it's like there's competition, but in order to get people here and to have them stay here, there needs to be this like camaraderie element to it. So
Thank you. I think those are important points. And again, I'm going to stop quickly and ask if any of the firm representatives have any questions, because I think it's time to move on to next steps. What do we do? So I'm going to stop here. Anybody have any questions, concerns, observations on what you've heard?
I
Wow,
would
this
just,
is a happy group. Heather, go
I would
ahead.
I would just like to comment that everything that I've heard so far is very exciting. It's exactly on point for what I'm hoping that we can accomplish.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, next steps. I think there's a couple things we want to achieve. One, there are a couple firms or companies or employers on this call that already have internships. If they want to participate in the Career Catalyst Summer Program, which expands and lets them meet other interns, which creates this momentum and this critical mass, should they contact you, Kate? How do they get into that program if they're not already there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not too late for this summer. We're kicking off our welcome kickoff event for students virtually. We're holding a trivia afternoon session with some welcoming comments and information about the program, just to get everyone kind of kicked off and started with the program. And that's going to be on Wednesday, June 9th. So there's still plenty of time. And even if things move slowly, you're a large organization, you need to get more approvals. We know these things happen. Our first main event of Lunch and Learns that will also be virtual, which are held weekly. The first one of those will be the following Wednesday. I think that's the 15th. So we'll work with you on what that looks like, and I can provide information if you're presenting to other members of your leadership team. I have content that you can send out to students, like cut and paste, like, we've decided to partner with this group. Here's what it offers. We're excited about it. Here's how you register. Like, we can get you up and running really quickly if you've already hired interns this summer and are thinking about joining us. Did you want me to talk a little bit more about the program in this space, Trisha, or?
I'm wondering, let's hold off on that, because I think what I'd like to do as a post wrap up is I will send a link to your site as well as your email address and let people follow through with you.
Perfect. Yeah. So really it's about, it's really just a matter of reaching out to me. We do have a standard set of guidelines for employers that need to be agreed to become an employer partner. It sounds like those of you who already have programs in place are likely nothing on there will surprise you. We really follow NACE guidelines, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, that really just outlines what is strategic in offering a real strong professional summer experience. So making sure they're either getting paid or getting college credit, that they have a supervisor, that they're getting regular feedback, that it's project-based. We don't just have people that are standing in a copy room and it's a temp job, but we're calling it an internship. right? Like we want to make sure that these are really valuable career building experiences for these students. So as long as you agree to those guidelines, it's really as easy as letting me know that you're interested, and I can get you on the list of employers. We send out weekly newsletters with all the information to our participants and employers. And we'd get your logo, add you to our website, so we can get you some branding out there. And it's actually quite easy. It's also free. I keep forgetting to mention that. We are fully funded as a nonprofit through philanthropic donations. We do offer sponsorship opportunities to employers that want to participate at that level and have additional branding out there. But it is completely free for our employer partners and for participants to participate in any of the events. So as I mentioned, we do weekly lunch and learns that are virtual, that are mostly around career exploration, industry exploration, skill building, but we also offer community building activities. So a schooner trip out on Casco Bay, a sunset stand-up paddleboarding adventure, all those things are free for participants that choose to join us after hours for events after work.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, so a couple other things, and I think we're not going to resolve all of these in this meeting, but at least we'll follow up. My next question is, there were a few people, one or two who aren't here, they tend to be smaller firms, that are still building an internship program. And you mentioned that you have some resources for that, and the Maine Society is happy to sort of serve as a liaison, participate in that. What do you suggest? Again, we're not going to resolve that in this meeting, but I want to be able to provide resources to people. How do you suggest we address that? Because I do have a population, as I said, that are very interested in creating an internship program, but aren't there yet.
Sure. I can definitely help support that. It's one of the reasons that I got brought on to this role was to help build smaller programming and help small employers bring on their first intern because of my background in HR and university recruiting. So if there are smaller employers that are thinking about hiring their first intern, I'm going to speak to it right now in terms of next summer. But I know there's that whole like elephant in the room with the tax people that want to hire people for the winter. So I'm going to talk about summer because that's when our program runs currently. We're hoping in 2022 to be able to expand that into some piloting of some year-round programming because we know there are interns across the state during the academic year. We had hoped to make that transition in 2021, but COVID threw a wrench into a lot of things. And one of them was my expansion ideas. So we're going to try again next year. It may be the fall of 2022. It's really unclear right now. We're still working and trying to figure out what that pilot might look like. And we'll probably be working on that throughout the summer and the fall to try to figure out exactly what that might look like and how we might pilot it so we can expand really quickly. So to that end, I have templates. I work with small businesses to say, here's what a good internship job description or job posting looks like. Here's how it might be different from what you might post for regular full-time positions. Here's what students are looking for. We get that feedback through surveys and through questioning and talking with our students that we work with regularly so that we can help you put your best foot forward. I can also have, work with people to think about like, what does feedback look like? Do you need a template for an interview questionnaire? Do you need a template for a midsummer review and feedback? For some people, you might already have that. You're like, no, I can just, utilize what we use for our, formal full-time employees. Other folks might be a really small firm and it's more informal. They don't have something like that. And they don't know how to think about what would I need to tell an intern halfway through the summer? They're only here for 12 weeks. So we can talk about that. So I can certainly help think about what makes a program strong and give them more of a sense of what we offer to complement a project. So how do you think about what you're going to hire an intern for? Like, you need extra hands. You know that this is a valuable experience for them and it'll be helpful to you, but what is it that you actually want them to work on? What's the project that they can take off your plate so that you're not managing them day to day trying to figure out what it is you're going to have them do. Let's like work together to brainstorm what a valuable experience would be for them and how it can help your firm move forward. So I can be a resource for that type of information for small employers, even if it's just a couple brainstorming sessions for, 2 45-minute sessions and we get pretty far along. Like I can be a resource in that capacity for small employers.
That's perfect. So I will share again your contact with this group as well as the people who aren't in attendance. I would also like to raise my hand to say we would love to be involved in your pilot program. We are an industry that hires many interns in the winter time. So we're like the perfect guinea pig. And I don't mean that in negative connotations. I mean it in a really positive way, that it would benefit us and the industry. So if you need assistants, volunteers, whatever in that capacity, I think we would love to be
Great.
involved in that.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really great thought too, because I think that's one of the things we're trying to think about is how could we pilot something that's not haphazard, right? Like, oh, we know these couple employers hire a few people, but if we could pilot it through a small industry group, that might be more helpful because we can really target that group of students and bring them together as a cohort. So that might be really valuable. The one thing I didn't mention after I said I'm going to talk about summer is that the timeline for that. So I would say that probably like December and January, we could start having more certainly have conversations this summer. So people are thinking about budgeting, but generally speaking, it would be like December, January that we would start having conversations about posting jobs so that they were recruiting and getting applicants throughout February and making offers in March. I know that sounds scary during tax season, but I promise you can do it. Even if we bumped it out a little bit and said, okay, you're going to make your offers in April, in late April, like those things are possible, but obviously students are applying earlier. So the earlier we can get you in, the better. But certainly doesn't need to be something where, if it's your first intern, you don't need to be like putting out job postings in September to hire for the summer. We can have a little bit more flexibility.
Perfect. The other thing I'd like to toss out there that I think would be really interesting, I love what you said about the insurance panel. And I think the accounting industry would love to do something like that because we do have an array. That's one of the wonderful things about a career in accounting is you can work in government, you can work in education, you can work in public accounting. So there are lots of options. So,
yes.
If we can work with you on that at a later date. So, and the last point now, and I'm going to turn it over, I think, 2 points. I think you both have made, obviously the public accounting firms in particular need interns during tax season. But would you say that the vast majority of students are looking, either Katie or Kate, for summer internships? So the more accounting firms and accountants and CPAs across the industry can think creatively, maybe even if it's only a 15-hour-a-week internship, because many of them take the summer off, I will say, or have reduced hours because they work a gazillion hours. But could we think creatively about how to structure, even if it's a half-time summer internship, the students can then participate in the summer experience, and it's not too much of a hardship on the particularly public accounting firms, who may be half-staffed in the summer because people are taking time off. That's one observation I made. If you guys could think about that, if people approach you about structuring internships, I think both of you are very creative, your organizations are creative, and any insights you could provide in that would be helpful.
I have a couple of thoughts. Katie, do you have anything to jump in initially? I think Katie could probably speak to what she sees on her job board, certainly higher volume for summer postings than any other time. It's why we started the program in the summer, is because the majority of college students are looking in the summer. It's not that they don't necessarily want to have an internship in the academic year, but often those are for credit, and they may already have a full workload. So I know I personally only had one internship during the school year, and it was for credit. So it's just not the thought process that a lot of even in talking to a lot of our higher eds and career counselors, everyone talks about summer internship. It's the time that they're not in school, they're not dedicated to their studies. It's easier for them to do, and they're going to be home. They have, more accessible cars or travel. Like it tends to be easier. And that's when we have done it. Certainly doesn't mean that we couldn't push to have more academic or get more in the school year. I would also challenge the CPA firm or the CPA firms or public firms to say, maybe it's not about your CPA and accounting students in the summer. Maybe you're building your brand on campus because your summer interns are an HR intern and a marketing intern, something like that, where you're thinking about it in a different way. And you just know, and maybe you do have someone part-time. I mean, I'll tell you right now, my intern isn't full-time this summer. Mia's on the call right now. She's listening in to learn a little bit today. But she works 32 hours a week. And it's just because I need time. And I know that the projects that we have are really valuable and that she's getting good experience, but I don't know that they're 40 hours. But I know it's 4 days a week. So that's what I offered. And sometimes being with that flexibility and saying, we can work with you on that schedule. She's chosen that it's Fridays off. But if she came to me and said, I'm going to do 32 hours a week, but I'm going to leave at 3 o'clock every day because I'm going to waitress at night 4 nights a week, I could have made that work. And so thinking critically about what would work for you. Is it that you're working with someone half-time every day, or is it a project that they can tackle 3 days a week for the length of the summer? Thinking about those types of projects can also help. Like, what does it really look like and how much time will it really take for this project, what I need to get accomplished versus that other piece of like, well, I want to hire an intern, so how many hours could I give them? Like, we need to shift the thinking to the project and what it's really going to take to accomplish. But I would encourage people to think about still continuing to build your brand as an employer, because people will still talk about you on campus if you hire someone outside of accounting, especially if you're at a large firm that has other departments.
Thank you, Kate. And Heather, I think you raised your hand. Did you want to make a comment?
I just to the subject of having interns outside of the summer period. I don't know if it would be something that could be considered, would be, as you said, a part-time, even just 15 or 20 hours a week for students who are close enough to a location where an internship is being offered. This instead of having to waitress to make money during the college semester, maybe this could be an option for them where they're getting career experience and being paid at the same time.
Absolutely.
So that might be something I'd be interested in discussing.
Yeah, and I would say that most internships that are during the school year do tend to be part-time. And so often they're less overwhelming for the employer if they're just getting started to say, okay, well, I could use help on this project or this particular area of my work. It would be great to have someone who could be here 3 afternoons a week for a couple of hours, and maybe it's only 10 or 12 hours a week. But that can be really helpful. So that's a great way to get started as well.
Anybody else have a question or comment before we move on to the job posting? I was actually just thinking, this is like probably a left field thought, but wouldn't it be so cool to create summer internships that have a few weeks in a public accounting firm, a few weeks in a government, a few weeks in education, a few weeks in private industry? It's one internship, spans the industry, so that no one employer is racking their brain in the summer when they're otherwise not that busy.
That's cool.
In terms of having to supervise an employee. Now, that's sort of probably a far out there goal, but it might be something we want to think about if we're going to be joining forces anyway. Okay, moving on now, and I think I'll turn this back over to Katie. You talked about the job board, which is ultimately what we want, is a one-stop shopping for students. How does that, can you walk us through a little bit of the specific logistics? How does someone get started? If I know, like Barry Dunn, for example, you have an internship program, you have positions, they may be filled now, but if you guys are on board, how do we create the go-to accounting internship listing? How do people get started?
Sure. So, and I do think you should, obviously you're going to keep it on your site. You might still put it on Handshake and all the other spots, but this is just another angle because we're trying to promote it. It's getting press. For example, the little side tangent, if you've heard of the golf event coming up, the professional, the Corn Ferry tournament that's coming to Maine in a few weeks, that is called the Live and Work in Maine Open. We're not benefiting. We actually have nothing to do with it. They are just borrowing our name and using it as like a economic development tactic, because rather than it being called the Bangor Savings Bank Open or something, I'll just use them as an example. All of the players, it's going to say live and work in Maine, and like all of the branding is going to say live and work in Maine. So they're going to be they want people to think about living and working in Maine. So it's really just like a marketing tactic. So I say that because we hope people will go, be like, oh, I want to consider living and working in Maine. What kind of jobs are there? Boom, job board. So just know that we're promoting the job board. Our partner with the job board is Masthead Maine. So that's the largest media company in Maine. That's Press Herald, sunjournal.com, centralmaine.com. So they kind of they're pushing that out. Their job board is now, our job board is now their job board. It's been that way for a year and a half now. Anywho, so it's very easy. It takes probably 30 seconds to make an account. I was just going to send the link here. So what you would do is essentially, I can just drop it in the chat, but I'll send this. We can follow up with this, Trish. It's essentially you make an account, and then we have an internship. Oops, Kate, I forgot to update. Oops. We can put we're essentially giving everybody a code to upload their internships into the site. So if you're like, look, I have 15 of them, I don't want to upload I don't want to copy paste all of them. We can work with our job board provider and just scrape the specific, let's say, I'll use Barry Dunn because I know they're a bigger firm. If you told us, can you just scrape our 15 Maine internships? We can do that on the back end. So it's really a question of making a quick account, and then you essentially go in and upload your job posting. You can copy paste what you have, but you could also say to apply. They don't have to apply on our portal. You could literally say to apply, URL here directs them back to your site. They don't need to stay in our portal. It's just, we're just featuring it there. Was that clear? Sorry, I realized I should have shared this visually, but
I think I'll work with you, Katie and Kate, and make sure we have all the appropriate links for follow-up for people, and we'll send it around with the recording of this meeting as well. So, but does anyone have any questions? Any participants right now have any questions about that?
Yeah, just to clarify, you said that you're going to send out a code that is specific to this group of people involved, and that is what we'll use in order to post jobs without the traditional live and work fee.
Yeah, what we have is a code for our employer partners. We opened it up to everyone this summer with the idea that if you used the code and you weren't a partner, you were probably going to get a phone call from me to become a partner. So Katie and I were working pretty closely on that. But if for example, you are like, listen, I'm about to post an internship position. I know that I'm behind a little bit, but it's still happening, and I hope they can start by the middle of June. The code is MCC 2021. will probably be a new code for next year for summer postings for internships that has next year's code in it.
Yeah.
But this was the first time we had partnered this year to do it. And so we created that code to help us track who was coming through conversations that Katie and I were having promoting the program. And helping me be able to reach out to new employers who might be interested, who are posting internships who weren't currently partners.
Okay, and when do you traditionally generate that code? The timeline you had spoken about earlier in this meeting is just a little off from when.
It's open right now.
Yeah.
Well, so is that going to be the code straight through until so when it comes for recruiting for summer 2022?
I think last summer we created it in September.
Yeah.
So that people could post before fall job fairs.
Okay.
So if you already have like a recruiting, I mean, in all likelihood, Katie, I'm just guessing here, we'll probably leave the 2021 code open for a while and then transition to 2022. Like I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, we can just keep it.
Yeah, for our industry specifically, just so you know, and it may help some of the other smaller firms, Big Four really drives when we have to recruit. Big Four is already recruiting for summer 2022. And so it kind of trickles down from there as to how firms basically need to hurry up and wait or not wait or anything like that. So for Barry Dunn, Whitfley, some of the larger main firms, we get our jobs posted in time for students to return to campus, which is usually Labor Day timing.
And we see that too with like some of the larger like life science companies. They all recruit, like Hannaford starts, not life science, but like Hannaford starts recruiting in like September and they're like all in.
Mm-hmm.
What we find is a lot of the smaller employers start recruiting in the winter once students have like moved past all of that because they're not interested in competing with the huge, right? Like they know that they're going to have all these offers, these other things happening, and then they kind of like wait and they do their recruiting a little later. Sometimes that's just because it's the structure and nature of their company. They haven't gotten approval for positions yet. But we see recruitment happening all the time. I mean, IDEX started recruiting in February. So there's certainly like large life science companies that are recruiting later. It just is a matter of, I think
the other side of our
Maine itself tends to recruit later than I was ever familiar with too. So, but yeah.
Any other questions? We're coming up against 10 o'clock and I want to wrap up on time. Does anyone have any other questions on anything we've talked about today, or any just general observations or? Okay, I want to thank everyone for participating. A special thank you to Kate and Katie. You've been a wealth of information, I think really given us some good ideas. As I said, I've recorded this and will share with everybody on this list, as well as the people who indicated their interest but did not appear this morning, as well as contact information for you, Katie. You shared the code, and Kate, I'm going to share your site, your email, and let's see. There was something else.
Also, sorry to interrupt. I'll also just send you, when we get off this call, the guidelines as well as the proposed schedule for this summer as PDF. So when you share out that information, you can just attach it to give people like a really good sense of like what we're offering this summer and what the guidelines are, just so they can have those like at their finger. I mean, it's all available online, but just at your fingertips.
That would be great. And hopefully we can get a critical mass, because I want to share the information about the job board with these internships far and wide. So, hopefully the momentum just keeps building. And again, please keep us in mind on your pilot program, because I think we are an industry to back up what Bethany said, that, particularly with the winter internships, that we would be particularly interested in that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anything else? If not, I'm going to let you guys go and then hopefully be able to enjoy a piece of this beautiful day. Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate the time.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Hope to hear from some of you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.